Roaming Astro says, the Mythbusters episode Duct Tape Island appeared to be a difficult time for both you and Jamie. Do you have any off-camera anecdotes from that experience? I'll tell you that Duct Tape Island, in which Jamie and I escaped from a deserted island using only duct tape, we made tents, we made cups, I made a hat, I made a belt, I think I made shoes, and then we made outrigger canoe. We made an outrigger canoe, and we were able to actually leave the breakwater of the North Shore of Oahu, Hawaii, on that outrigger canoe, all made out of duct tape. It was a really, really fun episode to make. I'm curious that you said it seemed like a difficult time for us, because my memory of that shoot is an unparalleled joy. We were filming on the North Shore of Oahu at the Turtle Island or Turtle Bay Resort, which is where they shot Forgetting Sarah Marshall. It is one of my wife's and my favorite hotels. We've stayed there half a dozen times. It is a spectacular location. It is surpassingly beautiful. It is also centrally located around the Lost locations. The banyan tree from Lost is like one of the hotel's attributes. It's like right there. And many Lost filming locations are within a 10-minute walk of the front door of the hotel. I think that if you got the experience watching it, that it was difficult for me and Jamie, that was about the tedium. There was a lot of tedium in that episode. A lot of like, I tore so much duct tape on the first day of making the outrigger canoe, that the next day I had trouble holding duct tape because the pads of my fingers were bruised. That was weird. That was a weird thing. And like, it was a tremendous amount of building. We were working hard every single day on that episode. The other thing that was happening was that we were all gaining weight because we're going back to the hotel and having daiquiris. There was like a crew-wide daiquiri infection where we all wanted daiquiris when we got back to the hotel. And you can eat all the poke bowls you want. You're going to gain weight if your diet is poke bowls and lots of daiquiris. The other thing was we were using some former, Lost had only wrapped like a year and a half before we filmed that episode. So it was fresh in people's minds, and several local people we hired for help, including our water safety people, had worked in that capacity on the show Lost. And we had this one super intense interaction with a member of the public. This is not something we had on Mythbusters a lot. Like, you go out to film in some place and someone comes up and just starts to make your shoot more difficult. Either they're being loud or they're harassing some member of your crew. This happens on film shoots. We rarely had to deal with this on Mythbusters, but like, it's part of filming. You're filming in the world, you're gonna have to deal with all the aspects of the world, including some nutty people within it. And we're doing this episode, we're doing the Duct Tape Island episode, and we needed to film on this beach. And it's a stretch of beach you would recognize from Lost. And it's beautiful. It stretches on this long curve and then turns into some rocks as a promontory out into the water. And as we're setting up in the morning, we look out and there's a dude out there. And he's way out at the end of this long run where the rocks begin. And he is, he's one of those people that spends their whole life in the sun wearing a pair of Speedos. So he is like nut brown. That is not the color he was born, but he is like suntanned to a degree that is like a rich Corinthian leather. This guy is brown, right? Like, he's been in the sun his whole life. We can see him from this long distance, and he's moving back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And we're trying to figure out what he's doing, and my cameraman pulls out the lens so we can get a better look at what he's doing. And he is transferring a whole bunch of stuffed animals from one part of the beach to another part of the beach. And he's having like a teddy bear picnic. And we're watching this and we're like, we're gonna have to deal with this guy. He's in our shot. And if he's in our shot, we're not gonna shoot down this. We want this shot. This is our shot. The beach, the curve of the shore, the rocks, and this guy's in the middle. And we're either gonna have to get a release from him, but honestly, if you're watching us do this thing, he's gonna be in there. We need to deal with this member of the public. So our producer, Jax, goes over to him. And she gets about 20 feet away, and he's not acknowledging that she's approaching at all. But she gets about 20 feet away, and without looking at her, he says, "You mess with me, I will shut your chute down. Do not ask me to leave. I will make your life a living hell." And he knew exactly what the rights of access were on Hawaiian beaches, and that we had no right to ask him to or make him leave if we that he could live. That was his right to be there. We understood that. We weren't going to forcibly remove anybody, but he made it very clear instantaneously that he knew all of this and was not going to make it easy. We later found out from some of the lost people, they were like, I don't remember his name, but it was almost like they were like, "Oh, you met that guy." And he had learned this technique from dealing with the people with lost. Look, I also just want to give you some perspective. If you are a person, a mentally divergent person, and you have a comfort place that you go, and a big film crew shows up, it's not like I totally don't understand his wanting to stay unmolested doing what he was doing. That was his right, and that's totally fine. I just thought it was hilarious how quickly he made it clear. "I know all the things you're gonna ask me, and I'm not gonna do any of them." And Jax came back and she was like, "We gotta move. We're gonna have to shoot somewhere else today." And we did. Ziz has this question. What do you think? How true do you think this maker philosophy is? The problem with doing it right the first time is that no one appreciates how difficult it was. I sort of bristle at that kind of thing. Simply because it's not about impressing people with how difficult the thing was. It's just not. I mean, look, I love building something from scratch and telling someone this was built from scratch and seeing their brain kind of they don't even know how that process begins. Totally, I understand that. But this phrase is about the problem with doing it right the first time. I just think it's a non-phrase. I just don't think it's that interesting. But I will say that the phrase should read, "The problem with doing it right the first time is that the maker doesn't understand how difficult it was." That's the biggest problem with getting it right the first time. You have a false sense of security because if you have a process and you do it 10 times, you're going to screw up twice. That's just how things work. Your concentration is going to lapse or whatever. So the biggest problem with getting it right the first time is that you yourself don't appreciate how difficult it was. That's more in keeping with a sort of maker's mindset, in my opinion. This falls into that category of the honey-do list. Honey, would you do this? That bifurcates a marriage into the asker and the doer, and I just think that's bullshit. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I wanted to briefly mention that you could become a tested member. I know, everybody is competing for you to become a member of their thing. What I want to express to you is that the Tested membership has become such an important part of the Tested family. We get tremendous feedback from the Tested members, and they expand the stories that we can tell and the things that we have access to. And you can become a part of it right now by clicking on the link below. See you in the chat.